And part of what we need to do is we need to be able to communicate these things to other people. We need to have a level of comfort with it that we can talk about it to somebody else. Because, thank God for people watching on Facebook Live. Thank God for those that will share it, so forth and so on. And the numbers there have been good. I do know some that are actually between Charlottesville and Richmond that watch it. And so in some other places. But the way it can go the quickest is if there's more than this happening. And what we have to have the body of Christ to understand is what God wants us to do. And that's an understanding that needs to be inside of more and more people. And so that's a big part of why we're doing this. That's why we're here doing this, is so people can hear it. I'll be honest with you, outside of once or twice in my life, in a couple places. Now, in those places, I attended some seminars, so it was more than once, but it was one event. You don't hear how God views government and the Christian's role in government. You just don't hear it. All you hear is separation church and state, separation church and state. Reminds me of Gomer Pyle on Andy Griffith calling out, citizens arrest, citizens arrest. I mean, it's almost like parroting something. We need to know the truth. Because our country, this is where I kind of ended this morning in Tuesday morning Bible study, is humanity's almost come full circle. In the Garden of Eden, God set a tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Satan attacked everything God said about that tree. God said, it'll kill you. And that information, when Satan came along, he ended up convincing Eve it was good for food. If you read Genesis 3, when she saw that it was a tree that was good for food, pleasant to the eyes, to be desired, to make one wise, then she ate of the tree. When she saw it differently, she disobeyed. And what we are experiencing in our culture right now is virtually everything that God has said is supposed to be this way. There is another voice, and you can pick out which one it is, that's initiating that says, no, this is better. This is the way it should be. This is wise. This is good. No, that's not what God said's not true. It doesn't apply today. Can we say amen? We've come full circle. And with that, we need to know what God has said. But Jesus said, if you continue in my word, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The reason we have issues in government is because our government is no longer influenced by the truth. Amen. Now, it doesn't mean that there wasn't ever problems before, but the thing of it is, it's going to produce more and more problems the further government gets away from truth. Because truth is what produces freedom and liberty. And believing a lie produces death, just like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So part of what we're going to do tonight is help you get better at sharing it. So actually, for those of you watching on Facebook, we'll be just a little bit shorter. We're going to cover this, and then we're going to do some exercises in here, not calisthenics. But we're just going to do some stuff to help get comfortable. And I'll describe it enough so that those of you watching on Facebook, you can do it yourself as well where you are. But let's go ahead and look at this outline, those of you that have it. The word, and you can go ahead and turn to Matthew 16. A few facts. The word kingdom is used 122 times roughly, depending on which translation you look at, in the Gospels. The word church is used 2 times in the Gospels. The English word church comes from the Greek word, and I'll spell it, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, K-R-Y-I-A-K-O-N. And this particular word is never used in Scripture. That's where we get the English word church. See, I was doing a little etymology study on church, and I'm thinking we're going to go from the English word church all the way back to the word ecclesia. Well, as I'm doing this, I find out English word church doesn't come from ecclesia, but that's the word here in Matthew chapter 16. Let's read here in Matthew 16, and we'll read verse 18. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my what? I will build my church. The actual Greek says, I will build my ecclesia. And I found out, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now, again, I found out that our word church doesn't come from the word ecclesia. It comes from this other Greek word. But Jesus said he would build an ecclesia, which made me think, then what's he building? Maybe I don't know what he's building. Because the word I've been associating with it all along isn't the same word he used. Because that other word basically has to do with like a house of worship or an assembly of people. And what do most people think about in regard to church today? They think about a house of worship or an assembly of people. And that's church. But that's not what ecclesia was. And Jesus said, on this rock, I will build my ecclesia. So what is an ecclesia? Well, first, let's understand that temple and synagogue, and you could even add tabernacle, were Jewish terms used to describe religious sites and religious gatherings. They gathered at the synagogue, they gathered at the temple, and prior to that, they gathered at the tabernacle. That's where they assembled. But yet, when Jesus said, I say unto you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my temple. That's not what he said. I will build my synagogue. That's not what he said. I will build my tabernacle. That's not what he said. Jesus did not use any of the typical religious expressions. Here he, as a Jew, living in Israel, which was an occupied territory of the Roman Empire, goes and uses a term from Greek and Roman civilization. Ecclesia is a Greek term. The Romans adopted it as well in their practice. Temple was a sacred place. Synagogue was a place of bringing together, a gathering. And if Jesus was trying to identify a gathering for worship and teaching, or even a religious site, he could have used one of those words. But he didn't. He didn't. Instead of using a Jewish term, he used a Greek term. And the word ecclesia, the Greek word ecclesia, is a compound word meaning out of, and to call, or to call out of. Now, at that point, a whole lot of Christians, and say, now let me throw something out to you here. Something I have started to do. I love W.E. Vines, his expository dictionary of New Testament words. I love Strong's concordance of Greek and Hebrew words. But I have found that they largely look at things through a church environment. They define them based on what they mean to the church world and look at it through that lens rather than the lens of what the word actually meant in the day that it was used. See, Ecclesia now, when people reference, oh, we're the called out ones. We're called out. Be ye separate, saith the Lord. 1 Corinthians. And we're to be separate from the world. We're called out of the world. Well, I got news for you. We're only called out of the world in regard to lifestyle. We're not called out of the world in regard to practice and life. Hold your place in Matthew. Let's go over to John's Gospel, the 17th chapter. John chapter 17. And I want to look at something here because I've said this a few times lately in a few different places. But Jesus didn't pray the way a lot of Christians pray. And let's see here. John 17. Let's go down through here. Let's look at verse 15. I do not pray, John 17:15. I do not pray that you should take them, what? Out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. Now here's the way most Christians pray. Pray for me to get a job with Christians. Pray for me to be able to get away from these heathen. Jesus said, I'm not going to pray for you to take them out of the world. And we pray and take us out of the world, Lord, now, please. Hello? Now, I'm a pastor, and you might think, well, that's easy to say. Yeah, but I've been on secular jobs and stuff like that, and I loved them. One job that I had, they hired a Satanist. And he came along, and he got talking about stuff, and he showed them pictures of people that he had, quote, put curses on, and their houses burned down, or they wrecked their cars, and all this kind of stuff. I put a curse on them, and this is what happened. Here, see the picture? Newspaper clippings. And I sat there and just kept my mouth shut. Well, why'd you do that? Well, your faith is kind of like the stock market. Buy low, sell high. Sometimes when they don't want to hear what you got to say, just keep your mouth shut. Because they're not paying enough attention. See, if they're not paying enough attention, then you hold on to what you got. You don't sell it. You don't give it. So I just sat there. This went on for like a week or two, and he's starting to scare all those people. And I'm not saying a word. But I was making me a plan. I got my Brother Hagin book on the authority of the believer. And I started taking that with me every day. And I had it with me every time when it came break time for to eat and stuff. I was second shift, so it was for supper, not really lunch. And so I'd have it with me. Well, finally it got to a point. They just kept looking at me like, aren't you going to say something? Aren't you going to say something? And I just didn't say a word. And then finally they said, well, Ray, what do you think about it? I folded my book together and I held it up. The authority of the believer. I said, the devil doesn't have any authority over you unless he can scare you. Amen. And I said, so if you don't know anything else to do, just laugh at him. I said, there is no reason to be scared of him because he's been defeated. Well, the whole staff of that crew I was with, every time he would start telling the story, they just start laughing. They moved away from fear. Next thing you know, he quit. Well, I wasn't trying to get him to quit, but he didn't need to be getting them into fear either. And I got news for you. Nothing bad happened to anybody on that crew. Nothing bad. But you see, at that point, in these things, God has called us to make a difference in the world. We are called out. We are different. And we don't need to come out of the world. We need to understand who we are in the world. And we need to understand who everybody else is in the world. Yeah, the devil's in the world, but he's a defeated foe. And these other people that are lost, instead of thinking of them as heathen, they're just people that's not saved yet. Thank you for your enthusiasm. But they're just not saved yet. They just haven't come to the Lord yet. They just haven't seen enough light yet. But greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world. Amen. And he that's in us, his light can overpower the blinders that the devil's putting on them. And so we need to understand that God wants us in the world to make a difference. But the mentality of the church is get me out of the world. And as long as we're thinking that, then guess what we're doing? We're giving the world to the devil. We're conceding the world. We're conceding all of those people to the devil. Go ahead. I don't know that that's a good idea. Can you say amen? Amen. Now, so with this, the word ecclesia, yeah, it means called out. But in the Greek world, and again, going back to the Strongs and Vines, they just look at it as called out. Well, yeah, it is. But when you look at the actual usage in the world, in the time of Jesus, the word ecclesia, and this is really where it comes down to us in this class, ecclesia principles, it was literally referring to those who were called out to vote. There were people that various places had different rules. But the bottom line is those who were in the ecclesia had the right to vote on the issues of the community, and they had a right to be a part of the determining factor in what the community was like. They were called out to vote. As the ecclesia of Jesus, let's put it this way, we're called out to vote. We're called out to vote. We're not called out, and get this, don't misunderstand how I mean this. We're not called out just to pray. Because if all you're doing is praying, then you're not acting like the ecclesia, because the ecclesia wasn't staying home and praying, the ecclesia was coming out and voting. And we've got to be involved in the voting process, from primaries, conventions, whatever, all the way up to the final election of whatever's going on, any referendums, because we are the ones that Jesus has called out to vote for Him. Amen. We're to vote His will. Let me say that one more time. We're to vote His will. What's He want? Because who does the earth belong to? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Amen. So what we're supposed to do is occupy till He comes, and we're supposed to vote for the things He wants. That's what we're supposed to vote for. And so it's to be understood as the called out ones, called out to vote. Merriam-Webster said it was a political assembly of citizens of ancient Greek states. Ecclesia is strictly, understand this, in the use of the day when Jesus said, I will build my ecclesia, the only way it was used, the moment he said this, the only way it was ever used was as a political assembly. It's the only way it was ever used. Then yourdictionary.com online said it was a public legislative assembly of Athens. That's kind of where it got its claim to fame, if you would. It was the public legislative assembly of Athens. Let me throw this in. The purpose of government. See, a lot of times, and I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking about a lot of things I've never thought about before. I'm assessing things. I'm trying to learn things. God established human government. But in the scope of things, he did it in Genesis 9. If you want to go back there, you can look at it. He established human government in Genesis 9. The purpose of government is the installation of values in a society. That's what government is for. Government is for the installation of values in a society. So whenever you think of government, if you're not thinking that government is for the installation of values, then you need to renew your mind. Because that's what it's for. And I got news for you. The other side understands that. They understand it is for the installation of values. That's why education, the educational system, is always the primary target of political people. Because it's all government is about is the installation of values and morals. And so if you're going to do that, the greatest opportunity of doing that is in the educational system, so you instill that in young people so that by the time they grow and they graduate, they are indoctrinated to those values. That's why everything with all the gender issues, all of these different things, that's why a lot of people say, why are they wanting to do that with kids? Because government is about instilling values into the society. That's why you have to keep pushing it down lower and lower and lower. That's why when Liz and I had kids, she was a stay-at-home mom for a number of years because we wanted to instill values in our kids. And if you would, we paid a price for it. She didn't have a job. We had less money. But I want to tell you something. I'll take how my boys are right now over the money. I'll take that in a heartbeat. And I mean, Liz, she stayed home. She instilled values in those kids. That, to use the MasterCard commercial, that's priceless. That's priceless. But again, that's why political groups target younger and younger groups, is because all government is instilling values in people. And that's why they tell the church, separation of church and state, separation of church and state. Don't you get involved in instilling your values here. Don't you put those things in these people. Why? Because then that will retard what they're doing. It'll slow up what they're trying to do. They want us to stay out of it so that people don't get our values. But all government is about is values. Roe versus Wade, what's that about? It's about values. Do you value human life or not? Do babies matter? Do they matter? Any political issue you go into that gets into the public arena in politics, it's always a value issue. It's always about what are your values? And what they tell us, they don't tell the other side this. What they tell us, well, since you're a Christian, you need to set your values aside and think about everybody else. Any of y'all ever heard that one? Yeah. Why? Because your values are different than ours, so don't bring your values in here because we want our values to prevail. Politics is nothing more than a battle of values. Now, at that point, the question easily becomes, if you don't care about the values of the society, then no, you do not need to get involved in politics. It's fine just to stay out of it if you do not care about the values of our society. But if you care about the values of our society, then you have to engage in politics. Because people that have values different than us, they are engaged there. Politics is their religion. They are doing everything they can to instill their values into the government and make you accept it even though it's not your values. Government is all about the values of a society and instilling those. And so Jesus, who the kingdoms of this world are His. They're His now. It's not that they're going to be one day. They're His now. Because if the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, now, that means the nations are His now. It just means that not all of them are doing what He wants. Matter of fact, let's go to Romans 13. You can let go of Matthew. I doubt that I'll make it back. Romans 13. Because we can see this. And again, these are reasons why we have to be engaged. And I'll go ahead and hit the next line in this. In ancient Greece, the word Ecclesia, it identified a group of individuals who would assemble regularly to vote on matters of civil policy. Jesus said that we're to be His Ecclesia. We're supposed to vote on civil policy. We're supposed to be engaged in the civil policy of our locality, our area, our state, our nation. Now, should we vote with Jesus or should we vote against Jesus? I want to vote with Him. I want to vote the way He wants it. Because He taught us to pray, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So He actually wants the policies of earth to match His will. Let me say it again. He actually wants the policies of earth to match heaven, to match His will. And so here in Romans 13, let's start with verse 1. He says, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from where? Except from God. And the authorities that exist are what? Appointed by God. Let me put it this way. If they are appointed by God, then they have a stewardship. And they can either be faithful over that stewardship or they can be unfaithful over that stewardship. I mean, if you look at the parable of the talents, there were those that were faithful, there were those that were unfaithful. And at this point, and so where I'm wanting to drive is that the President of the United States, not just right now, But when whoever is ever the president of the United States has a stewardship that they will have to give account to God for how they function. Amen. Whoever is governor of Virginia has a stewardship from God, and they will have to give account for how they handled that. And let's just put it this way. Some do better than others. Amen. Some do very poorly. Some might hear, "Thou wicked and slothful servant." And others could hear, "Well done." But at that point, when they're done with life here, they're going to have to give an account. Not just when the millennial reign starts. This is even now. Every ruler, every person in political office is accountable to God. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think that God goes, "Well, I understand that that's civil government. My will shouldn't be brought into thought and shouldn't be factored into this. You do what you think." You think that's how God's thinking about it? No, that's not how God's thinking about it. God's thinking, you doing what I want to do, or you not doing what I want? Because they're accountable to Him. And that's even now. That's even now. So if they're responsible for that, then do we have a stewardship on who gets there? Do we have a stewardship on our role in who gets there? Oh, I believe we do. I believe we do. And you see, with this, the whole thing of the Ecclesia, we have to get engaged. Now, let me throw something out here. I don't think I've got it on this one. And that we've covered all on the handout I was wanting to cover. But you see, let me give you a very poor example. A way that the church failed. The way that the body of Christ failed. They understood what an ecclesia was supposed to be, but they failed in the implementation of it. And let me tell you the cure for that. Anybody familiar with the Holy Roman Empire? Holy Roman Empire, once the Roman Empire kind of fell, the church was the glue that held what was left of the Roman Empire together. And the popes largely directed the kings of multiple nations. And so when you get to like England and Henry VIII, and they started the Church of England to get out from under the authority of the Pope. All of those kind of things. You see, they understood that the church was to be the ecclesia, that they were to affect the culture. Where they made their mistake is that the church organization was exercising that control rather than the body of Christ. You see what I'm saying? Victory Worship Center is not supposed to control the government of Augusta County. But the believers of Augusta County are to influence and, I'll say it, control the government of Augusta County by who they select to put in there. Supposed to do that. And so what happened, if you would, and going back to this, we've talked a number of things about jurisdictions, and authority always goes with jurisdiction. You see, the civil government has authority. It has authority over civil matters. The church organization does not have authority over civil matters. It's not supposed to. When the Catholic Church started doing that, that's when it created a problem. And out of that, we got the Inquisition. We got people being killed and all kinds of terrible things. Can we say amen? But we have to understand the church's jurisdiction, the church organization jurisdiction, is over the church organization. That's why there has to be freedom of religion, that the founding fathers recognized the jurisdiction of the church. Congress shall make no law establishing religion, because if you establish it, then that way you put the other one down. You don't make one to establish it, nor do you prohibit the free exercise thereof. In other words, hands off the church. Don't slow it up, don't impede it, but don't establish it either over here in the civil arena. Now, by that, having a manger scene is not establishing religion. Amen. You say, oh, but it's promoting it. Okay, fine. But at the same time, I mean, here's where I am. And a lot of people would say, oh, it's terrible. This thinking right here that I'm getting ready to give you is why prayer got taken out of the school. Prayer got taken out of the schools not because really of Madeline Murray O'Hare. It got taken out because of Christians. Because the idea was sold to Christians, if we keep prayer in there, we're going to have to let these other religions pray. And I don't want to let these other religions pray. I don't want anybody praying to a false god. Well, it's either people pray to whoever they want to pray to, or nobody prays. Amen. I'd rather them pray to who you want. I love what a minister, I think he was from Roanoke. I know Bill was at that meeting. I'm not sure who all else was there. But they had a thing on prayer going back in the school. And this one minister got up and he said, I think it ought to be like Elijah on the Mount Carmel. Let the prophets of Baal cry out to Baal, and let us cry out to God, and the God who answers, let him be God. I can live with that myself. I think our God can stand competition. I don't think we have to protect God. He's a consuming fire. You don't have to protect him. Amen. But Christians, we don't want that. But no, we've got to understand that in this arena, civil government, it does have a jurisdiction. Church has a jurisdiction over here. There is truth. Understand what I mean here. There is truth about separation of church and state. Thomas Jefferson he said there is a wall of separation. Now, the accurate description of that wall of separation is the church is not supposed to step onto the jurisdiction of the civil government, and the civil government is not to step onto the jurisdiction of the church. Amen. But believers, people of faith, can be in government and can express their values in government. There is no wall to your beliefs. There's only a wall to the jurisdiction. Church is not supposed to make rules for the civil government about morals and things. That's supposed to happen in that arena. And so if we want certain values, let's take an easy one. If we really believe people shouldn't murder people, then you need to express your values in the public arena. We don't pass the law here, we pass the law there. But because government is where morals and values are instilled in society, we don't do that here. Now, we still teach them here, but if we're going to affect society with it, We've got to individually go into the civil government to make that happen. Because the church organization doesn't have jurisdiction there. But the people who are a part of the civilization, part of the civil society, they have jurisdiction over there. They have the right to vote and say, no, we don't want people killing people. We're not going to let that happen. They have the right to say, no, we don't want people killing babies. We don't want unborn children being killed. But that happens over in civil society. That's where that law has to be passed. It's a separate jurisdiction. We've got to understand those jurisdictions. And you see, the church violated, back in the Holy Roman Empire, the church violated that jurisdiction. And that's where all kinds of problems came about. We've got to understand, one of the rules is respect proper authority. We have to respect the process of civil government. The jurisdiction of faith needs to be respected. And thank God, Jerry told me that actually I guess the court, I don't know if it was a jury or what, but the one church that kept meeting all through COVID, they actually won their case the other day. The fines kept piling up, and they just kept doing what they were doing. And it went to court, and the stuff was determined to be unconstitutional. They won it, and from what I understand, the damages that were awarded today was $1 million and some to the church. Praise the Lord. Glory to God. But again, that needs to happen in the civil government. But what the civil government was doing was overstepping into the religious arena, the faith arena, and they don't have jurisdiction there. They don't have jurisdiction there. And so with those things, that's what we need to do. Now, we're getting ready to stop. Don't turn it off yet. But here's how we're going to handle the summer. I have been thinking about it, and a number of people have asked me what we're going to do here. I basically plan, I don't know when we will ever quit this, because we need more and more people to understand the Christian's role in government. Now, especially during the summer, because stuff happens, I know that there's times I'm going to be gone. Okay. There's times you're going to be gone. Then you won't come when you're not here, and I ain't going to be here when I ain't here. That's a fact. We're just going to keep it simple. But otherwise, for whoever it works for, we'll just keep doing it. Because again, we've got to get the message out. And I honestly do believe that part of my assignment is to help get this out. And so we want to make it available. And I mean, it's not like it's huge, but there are more and more people beginning to become aware of it, even in other places. And we've been asked for information on things, and there's some groups we're connected with that, again, we need to get information out. And we're not the only one doing it. There are others that are doing a lot more than me, but we're supposed to do our part. And so there is no condemnation to you. So whatever works for you is what works for you. And just do what you need to do, and we'll go on. And we'll see what happens. I just did good to make that decision today. Yeah, I can't make but so many decisions in a day. And today was a doozy. It was a doozy. Whoo, Lordy. All kinds of stuff going on. Good stuff. But having said that, I want to go ahead, I'll tell y'all, and I'll tell the people on Facebook, what we want to do is I want you to take what we've talked about. And for those on Facebook that don't have the handout, if there's somebody with you, and if there's nobody with you, I want you to talk to yourself. And don't act like you've never done it before. We all talk to ourselves sometimes. And what I want you to do is just reference. There's two parts I want you to reference. Number one, and what we're going to do here, and you can do, those of you on Facebook, if there's somebody with you, I'd like you to do it. At least two people get together and take turns reviewing the information so that you get used to saying it and get comfortable processing it. Because if you don't get comfortable processing it to other people, then what's going to happen when you need to share it with somebody? It'll be more difficult. Now, what was that? And this is just a way of, it's like football practice. Got to do your reps. And you got to create muscle memory. And so with that, this will help. Just basically go into that Jesus picked a secular term when he said, on this rock I will build my church. I will build my ecclesia. It was a secular term. It wasn't a temple, wasn't a synagogue, wasn't a tabernacle. He picked a secular term that identified those who were called out to vote on the issues of the day. Now that's about how long that takes. I just did it. I just summarized it. Just getting used to that summary. And then the second thing is that according to Romans 13, even now, all government officials have to give account to God for what they do. So therefore, we would have to give account to God for who we help put there. And they're doing things consistent with God's Word. That's our stewardship. We're not having to wait for the millennium. This is now, in the here and now. And again, that's all on that part. Those two parts, about the ecclesia and about the stewardship of civil government. At that point, because those are key things that if we can get other people to see them and to begin to think differently, it'll be a huge, huge help.